All right, everyone, welcome back to the Anchor of the Week. First of all, it's been a while.
It has, yeah.
Yes.
Too long.
Too long.
Are buzzing to be back.
Yes, we are back. We are continuing our series on the World Wide Web. We had a nice little break for the holidays, but we are back to jump into it. And as you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, we are live on location today.
Yes.
Yes, and we have a guest, if you didn't see that either.
Yes, yeah. This is an exciting time because this is our first official road trip away. It's an away day for the team.
Yes, we took Zach's car and we drove down to Bristol, all to interview this woman right here, Jade Parnell.
Honored.
Yes. No, Jade, Dr. Jade Parnell right now.
Thank
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes, no, you are here. You are correct me if I'm wrong, a psychology researcher.
Yeah.
Yes, here we go. At the University of the West of England, specifically at the Centre of Appearance Research.
Correct.
Yes, and
Which
today...
is U of E, is that?
UE. We
UE.
say that
Oh,
for
UE.
short here in Bristol.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's cute.
UE.
UE.
Love the lingo, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you hear us saying UE, it's just because now we're from here, so...
Yeah.
That's where we're at. That's where
Exactly.
we're vibing.
Exactly. We're alumni. I think we're honorary alumni.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, today we're going to talk to Jade about, she does all this research about body image, especially in young people. We're going to see how that ties to social media, as that's what we've been talking about for the past few episodes, several episodes actually. So we, in the words of Zach, are buzzing for this. Jade, do you want to start off just by giving us kind of like a little like context of you? So maybe your role here at UE, and your areas of specialty. I know we kind of touched on them. But you'd be able to give us, more on that.
Yeah, thank you. I would say as well, thanks again for coming all this way. It's so lovely to have you. And I'm here at UE and at the Centre for Appearance Research specifically, which is based at the University of West of England. And here at the Centre for Appearance Research, we also call it CAR for short.
There we
Just
go.
a lot of acronyms thrown in.
So we're going to be really with the lingo at the end of this.
So we say CAR here, and I currently work as a research psychologist at the Research Centre, which is a team of about 35 of us.
Wow.
There's a few, lots of people really all invested in the topic of body image and appearance research. So that's kind of what we do here. Yeah. We deal with topics about social media and body image and its effect, quite importantly, on everyone. But also we deal with a lot of research in visible differences. So we've got some people that work within like military personnel and the impact that it might have if they sustain injuries during combat.
Right, interesting.
And the long-term effects that might have. So such a variety of cool, exciting projects. And I've just in August, I completed my PhD.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is a big feat.
It feels like so long ago now, but it also, was such a big part of my life for so long.
Yeah.
I did my PhD. It was kind of focusing on young children and young children's stigma and attitudes towards a range of appearances, particularly appearances that we say are diverse, typically not as represented very well. So we talk about like ethnic minority, disabilities, also higher weight, and trying to promote acceptance in those young children, because it is very important to do that as well.
Yeah.
These attitudes develop young. It's problematic.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's my specific research focus, but lots of cool things happening here at CAR.
So talk me through, because I genuinely don't have a clue how this works. Like when you say researcher, is that like you're on the computer most of the day, or you've got like, I guess, experiments, or you just, I guess, what does your day look like, I guess?
Yeah, well, I suppose that varied pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Okay,
we are a little bit more, and we're a little bit more at home. So there's a variety of things that happen. We do experiments, research with people, participants that we say, who are important to us, and we want to understand more about their lives, their experiences. That's what really drives us. And then once we have that data, once we know more about the people that we want to understand more about, we publish that research, we disseminate our knowledge and that scientific understanding. So what we are saying isn't just being plucked out of nowhere.
Right.
It's not that kind of like, someone who's wrote a Facebook status and that's it. Like that's come from, someone who thinks that those are a fact. But this is stuff that we've put time and effort in. It takes serious, stringent processes to be able to do this ethically, to make sure that our research is actually robust and has merit. So that's kind of what we do. In terms of where we are, sometimes we're in schools. I've done a lot of work in schools before, and I really love that. Working with the children, adolescents, teens, all those people is so important. Some people, work with the armed forces. Lots of really cool varieties. So it looks different depending on what you're doing, who you're researching. But the main aim is that we want to know more scientific research, understanding, and get that out there in journals, published papers, and to everyone through podcasts, things like this. Trying to share that knowledge.
Amazing. Which, side note, Jade has her own podcast. We'll plug that multiple times during this one.
Thank you.
It's called Appearance Matters. Yeah?
Yes, it is. Appearance Matters, the podcast. Get it on anywhere you like your podcast.
There we go.
You know how it is.
And again, we will plug that periodically.
Thanks.
Amazing. So now diving into our topic of today. We've been on this series of the internet and technology and how it affects us in a lot of different areas of life. Yeah. We have talked about mental illness, but I think specifically body image, like I think it deserves its own episode, right? Yeah. Because the way that we are perceiving ourselves these days is totally altered now by our lives being lived on social media. So there any even kind of just like off the cuff thoughts on that, and how they were like, how have you seen that maybe in your research? And then we can kind of dive off from there. But if you have any starting statements.
The thing is, just firstly, it's such an important topic, but such a massive thing, isn't it? Like you said, it's so all-encompassing. Social media is so there in our lives. It's accessible. It filters into so many ways that it can impact us. Not just our body image, but body image is definitely something it can really impact and affect. So when we're talking about this topic, you say just one episode. I'd also say multiple. This is something that you could talk about, and it could vary depending on the type of social media or the type of person. And there's so many layers there to it to unpack. So this research area is really important. Something that we do a lot of work on here at CAR, but also lots of researchers globally do, particularly in the US, the UK and Australia, quite westernized, which is a problem within research anyway. We acknowledge that is a limitation and more global research is needed.
Interesting,
But I think in terms of social media, there is definitely a wealth of research out there that has showed the negative impact that it can have. There's longitudinal research happening over a sustained period of time that says the more long-term sustained engagement with social media platform, the more negative effect that this can have on people. In comparison to some of the previous research within traditional media. So just to unpack that a little bit, we have in our body image research world, traditional media, your TV, your magazines, your billboards, and then you got the social media. And we known for years, traditional media really can be harmful. But with traditional media, it's celebrities, you're passive engagers, you're not actually creating the content. Social media has so many extra layers of you're not just the person engaging in the content, but you also get to put yourself in the driver's seat. Wow. And I like to think of it as you can be in the passenger seat looking, scrolling, engaged, just randomly looking at your news feed. But you can also create the content, put yourself in the driver's seat. And I mean, when you're driving a car, you can't always necessarily know what other people are doing on the road, and you don't have complete control. We'll say that. And social media, you don't have a whole wealth of control. Someone could still hit you, and that can happen. But you do have that extra layer of being able to drive a little bit, make that content and choose what you might want to engage in a bit more versus traditional media where you just kind of were, sitting ducks. So there's a different element there.
Does this start, because I mean, I know your work is a lot more with the younger kind of generation, if you like. Does it start there then? Is that kind of, obviously now social media is much more accessible to those sort of ages, especially compared to what it used to be. But is that just a starting point of where this is kind of built, I guess?
It is. And I know that social media has some sort of age restrictions,
really easy to go around that.
Yeah, I know.
Right? That's my point. I was just, exactly what I was just about to say. And that doesn't mean that people follow that. And there is definitely, since the pandemic, but this has been pre-pandemic as well, the connectedness that people need to feel, children who weren't able to actually go into school and engage with peers, there was that real element of, well, social media added that level of connectedness
Yeah.
that we needed. We really did. And I think that, yes, young children are being presented more with social medias at such an early age. And as researchers, we struggle sometimes to keep up with the ever-changing environment of social media.
Yeah.
We find, like TikTok is far more popular now than it was a few years ago, and we've got lots of research on Facebook and some on Instagram, but a little bit less on there because it takes a couple of years for us to catch up.
That's true.
To do the process of the research and the quality it needs, we have to take time to do it. And so we find that by the time we've got that data, we're like, oh, there's a next thing. So we're chasing our tails.
Yeah, it's always like social media is a step ahead, right?
It is. And so we're like, okay, we know this is harmful and we know this can have a negative effect. But then there's like, well, what if this happens? Or what if we do that? Or what if it's more video content versus images? What does that mean? And we can't necessarily tease that out quite simply in such a short space of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is definitely something that we are a bit behind on, and that is acknowledged. But what we do definitely know is that young children engage in it early. It can have a harmful negative effect, and there are some key elements that really can play into the impact that it has on people. So one thing that research shows is that a key component is appearance comparisons. So social media is related to having negative body image the more you're engaging it. But there is also this influence of the type of social media that you're engaging with. Yeah. If it's very appearance heavy and you're more likely to compare your appearance to others, which almost happens automatically.
Yeah, for sure.
This isn't something people can just stop doing.
For sure, yeah.
But the more people compare themselves, the more tendency they have to compare themselves with the images, the more negative the outcome is.
Right.
And that's another key element to social media, right? In comparison to traditional media where it was celebrities who we didn't know. Social media, these are our friends. These are our people we went to school with or people we are going to school with.
Yeah.
And so these are direct comparisons. We can be like, oh my God, they've got a new BMW. I don't,
Yeah.
as well as the appearance elements of, oh, they've lost weight, blah, blah, blah. How has this happened? All these things that really drive. And that appearance comparison, massive poignant thing here in this context.
So interesting that, like, because I guess when I think of it, I think, okay, people are looking at influencers and obviously the impression they put on, and it can be very fake. I mean, not all influencers, sure, but it
It's
can
easier to know that it's fake, I guess, in that
yeah.
sense.
And it, almost in my head, it's like, that's what that people are comparing to a lot more. But actually, you're right. I think like they're comparing themselves even just to their friends, like that they see day to day. You know? So interesting. Yeah.
And also comparing yourself to yourself in the past. You know, when you get those like time hop images of you 10 years ago, you're like, whoa, 10 years ago I was this, that,
Yeah.
And you compare yourself to yourself. There's
Wow.
loads to unpack.
I've never thought about that.
Honestly, yeah.
Gotta make a new note for that one.
Yeah, so I think appearance comparisons, but they happen in multiple ways with your friends, even with Instagram or other social media influencers, comparing yourself if you are a similar age. And also there's this different dynamic, right, where with celebrities, with traditional media, it was kind of like you were given that information, but where you're in social media, if you're following influencers, you feel an almost kind of akin likeness to, or you almost see them as an acquaintance in some ways. There can be a different dynamic at play. And so there's this element of what does that mean for the influence that has on body image and the way that you feel about the way you look. And research is saying, it's not that helpful.
Yeah.
If you're engaging in very appearance heavy content and you are more likely to compare yourself to those images, then you are more likely to have those negative outcomes of body image concerns.
Yeah. And I feel like it's so hard to stay away from any like appearance related content, especially like Instagram, whatever. I mean, it was maybe different for you. I don't know. You're really into fitness. So maybe it goes, you get like the algorithm suggests a lot of that for you, which could be the same.
Yeah.
But I know for me, every time it's beauty this, makeup that, like, and then you're just staring at people's faces and going, wait, why is my face not that symmetrical? Or like, how, that doesn't work on my eye shape or something like that. And then all of a sudden you start to compare and things like that, which is,
It's really important. And also I'd like to add that this isn't just, this is really important for people who have appearances that really kind of, we say, differ slightly from the appearance norm or appearance ideal. So we say people who have like a visible difference, for example. And there has been some serious and important campaigns by like Face Equality International and Changing Faces where it's like, I'm not your villain, because a lot of people who have, say, for example, a facial scar or a facial burn are often likened to, especially within media like Disney, for example. I mean, Lion King, Scar was the villain. He has a scar.
Yeah. Oh.
Think of like children, like your point there. Children watch that. You internalize that at such a young age, and there was a correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something that I'm trying to recollect. There was like a filter that was on Instagram, and it was like how your beauty, once you put your face on the filter, and how your beauty was, whether you were 10 or whether and it morphed you into a different person, and the person who was like on the really ugly spectrum had a visible difference.
No way, come on.
Yeah, really. And it's like, that's how, and it was almost seen as like something that was a trend to follow.
Yeah.
That can have such a huge impact on someone who has a visible difference.
Yeah.
These people, that's their lives.
Yeah.
That's like really difficult to live in those contexts if people are making that seem like such a negative thing, you know? So it's got a lot of impact across the board, not just, you know, people who have appearances that typically fit the norm, but those who have more diverse appearances as well.
And understanding that it's not that we come onto social media a complete blank space, you know, that we all have these prejudices or biases, right? As you said, even from Lion King. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like the subliminal messages that we're receiving, so that when we get onto social media, you know, I mean, for us, we didn't grow up with it, you know, but when we downloaded it, we already had what would you call it? Appearance comparison, right?
Yeah.
But then it was just like amped up.
Yeah.
This is,
I mean, because, you know, something that we've thought a lot about is how social media is actually just the tool, almost, and it's just the thing that speeds the process up, if you like, of the insecurities that you actually have within you. So, you know, I mean, social media is poor, and it's, you know, there's a lot of bad things about it, but it just highlights a lot of insecurities in us.
In like humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been very much like, well, you know, social media is bad, and it's not good the way we're going about things. But also, I feel like the solutions are much more within, right? You know, and I mean, you nod your head. I'll let you share.
No, I'm nodding because I'm in agreement, but I'm also like thinking about what you're saying, because it's really interesting, because we, like the analogy I used earlier, we can get in the driver's seat, create content, but we can also be passengers scrolling for our feeds. But the social media, the driver is the car, right? The vehicle that we're in. So, but we can kind of choose to take it to what space we want, and that's the algorithm, isn't it? That's the decisions, and we kind of we often assume that social media that we see is the same as everyone else, but actually it's
so different.
Yeah, it's scarily different, right? And I think that's a real interesting point that you're saying about the idea of what we're going to choose to engage in, and it's emphasizing what we might enjoy content wise. So if we like beauty content, makeup, those kind of things, then we are going to see more of that content, understandably. But then what does that mean for comparisons and what we see and how we view ourselves in reverse? It's like a mirror, isn't it, to our own lives? And it is highlighting some key elements. It's scary. I think that on that note, my point mainly would be that, and I hope that this happens more going forward, but social media needs to be held quite strongly accountable for what can happen as a result. And this, we say body dissatisfaction is, we like to point out, a public health issue. This is a public health issue. There we have this thing called normative discontent. It was a term coined in the 80s, but it means that we are so unhappy now with the way that we look through the mediums of social media, through marketing, through advertising, telling us, you know, we should look a certain way, that we just hate ourselves. And especially women, more so men now as well. And it's scary, because it's almost normative discontent. It's normal to not like yourself. Yeah. That's a normal thing.
Yeah, it is.
So
yeah, I'm even thinking like in my friend groups, even now and in the past, like 100%. What is our conversation topic? Rarely like, oh my gosh, I love myself. You know, like, you know.
When you say stuff like that.
How many times do you say this? And we have these, I've kind of done, this is a bit of a side note, but interventions, working groups with young adolescent girls.
Really?
Yeah, and we do this peer-led thing where we sit around, and it's called the Succeed Body Image Intervention. It's really cool. I love it. It's 3 sessions that we do about a couple of hours long. We sit with girls and we talk about this, and we say, this is a real difficulty. And everyone comes forward with, oh my God, I feel like this. I don't get to talk about it much. This makes me feel really concerned, and the influence it can have.
Wow.
But then we do these powerful things where we go around and we say, I want everyone to say, I love my, and choose something physically about your appearance that you love. Because as girls, we do not say this enough.
No.
We don't.
We have our go-to if someone asks, you know, like, oh, my eyes, you know, but then, like, that's it.
That's
Like,
it. And we actually, that's a really good point. Because, yeah, Courtney, we say, oh, choose something that you don't normally want, like, say. Or also something that is completely, typically not the appearance norm. Like, I love my stretch marks. You know, especially for, like, women who have had a child, who might, you know, you birthed a child, you created life. Wow.
Yeah.
Then you have all these appearance pressures.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't have any children.
Yeah,
but
neither do I, but I can only imagine.
Yeah, this is it. So the levels of difficulty
Wow.
that this has, and it's scary, but agreed. We never say very often, I love my boobs. And so when seeing a teenage girl do that, I was like, yeah, girl, you go.
Yeah,
Like,
literally. Come on.
do that. I
So
love
where are
this.
these held? I think I need to join one.
No, it's a powerful movement. You feel like a strong space
Yeah.
because we don't do it. Why?
Because of the normative dissatisfaction, is that what it's called?
Normative content, yeah.
Oh, normative content.
Yeah.
Discontent, yeah.
Normative, yeah. Sorry, I was like, yeah, normative discontent.
Normative content is what we're going for, right?
That's what we want.
That's the goal.
That's the aim. So yeah, that's the kind of difficulties that we have in society.
Wow. Yeah.
We're all hating ourselves, and it's just making the space tricky,
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah. Before we continue, because I know we're going to take this, and I'm loving it. But I want to go back to filters for a minute.
Yeah.
Because this is something that is really, I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot recently. And I was even telling Kaylee, our camera person.
Shout out.
Who actually also happens to be my housemate, so she gets a lot of my late night talks. But I was saying that all of a sudden the algorithm decided on Instagram Reels that what I loved watching, which I kind of did, was people with beauty filters on and then taking them off and being like, this is what I actually look like. This is such a catfish. And literally, it was like every video, and I was just like, oh my word. Like, we know that beauty filters are, you know, they make your nose smaller, whatever the beauty standard is at the time, I suppose. But how, like, I know, like, I've struggled with body dysmorphia and, like, body image a lot, you know, in my life. And how if I was in a more unhealthy space, especially if I was a teenager, how I would have, like, freaked out that I didn't look like that, you know, and only would have posted photos with a filter, you know? And I don't know if you have anything to kind of speak into that other than it's horrible. But maybe something more for the person that's listening to this, you know, however old they are, you know, being like, wow, well, when you're bombarded with, this is called the beauty filter, or this is called, you know, pretty face, or this is called whatever, you know, they're all called these things. How do we, I don't know, not get, I guess, I don't know, insecure about it, or even worse, you know what I mean? Like, what do we do? Do you have any insight?
I think there's a couple of things there. Firstly, like what the research would say about that's effect, which isn't necessarily telling you what to do yet, but it is telling you what effect it might be having. And there was a study that came out in, I think it was 2021, so only last year, about Snapchat dysmorphia and how the idea that they kind of view whether you're doing a selfie or video, like a selfie, that is automatically putting a filter on at the time when you're doing it, or whether you are posting a profile or post in a grid like on Instagram and you're adding that filter on post after the image has been taken, still there is that idea that you are changing your appearance. And when you view, I'm just picturing, you know, your phone and it's throwing your image back at you, but with a filter on, there is that thing that they say, Snapchat dysmorphia, where you're kind of, especially for young teens, you start to have, they're building a self-identity there. They're trying to understand the concept as a teenager. I mean, we've all been there. You're trying to understand, who am I? Yeah. What is my identity here? Yeah. And your image is an important factor in that, especially in the society we're in now. And if you're seeing yourself on your phone, your filters thrown back at you with like you say, smooth complexion, smaller nose, bigger lips, bigger eyes, then what is that going to do? Like, it's scary for me because that's a really important time. I'm not sure. That's something we need to work out long term, like, because actually there was a study that one of my colleagues who used to work here at CAR, Georgia Treneman Evans, did. Shout out to her, she's a friend of mine as well.
Hey, Georgia.
Yeah, so she did some really interesting research with teenage girls and interviewed them and asked them like about doing selfies and also the use of filters, and they all tended to use filters. And interestingly, they all said it didn't really matter. It wasn't really having an effect on them. Like, it wasn't really a problem.
That's alarming, right?
So the alarming point here is they might not be quite aware of what effect this is having.
Yeah.
Because other research has shown that yes, it is having an impact. These filters or viewing these images is negatively impacting young girls. In fact, they tend to say it affects them negatively, especially if they're high on appearance comparisons, that key element that we talked about earlier.
Okay, and so on this note as well with filters, and you even talked about, you know, it makes your lips look bigger and your nose smaller and eyes bigger and all of this. That is based on a beauty standard that somehow we've all accepted is the beauty filter, the beauty standard. Where does it even come from, you know? And I know it's changed throughout history. Obviously, when you look back, you know, and you can watch these videos of what like the ideal beauty was, you know, from, I don't know, since like the 40s or something. But where does it even come from? And how do we as a society just go along with that? You know, like, why does no one think about this?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. So I wanted to firstly mention, so the beauty standard, also in body image research, we call it the appearance ideal.
Okay.
In inverted commas. And interestingly, like exactly what you just said, Courtney, that I've been into schools and asked teen boys and girls, what are the appearance ideals like? And they can unequivocally all list them, like they're all exactly the same kind of notion, you know, for women being hairless, all those kind of things. Having clear skin, all situations like that, big eyes, and the filters add to those things, exactly as you said. But when historically, this has been around for so long. It's tough to kind of even pinpoint like what exactly is it. But we do know things that have driven these, and so a lot of it has come from marketing and advertisers and companies. For example, a really good one I just used about females being hairless. Well, biologically, that is not what our body wants us to do, let's be honest. But yet still, we pick up a razor, often females, and without question, as teens, we'll start to remove our body hair from eyebrows down.
Yes.
That's the jam, right? Do it. Don't question it. And that kind of stemmed from advertisers and companies like Gillette and razor businesses that really wanted to boost their sales. And how do they boost their sales? Well, they just make women feel like their body hair is not worthy. And so then they have to pick up and buy a razor. There's no question. And then they find things like, as they want to boost their sales further, they do extra layers like male grooming. And then we find more towards males with their grooming of their body hair and their facial hair. It's all as a means to sell. So every time we find that these things kind of really take poignancy, it's typically historically because some sort of advertiser or marketing has tried to sell itself by making you feel awful. Buy this product, do this, and you'll feel great. This lipstick is all you've ever needed. Like you know, this foundation will make your like skin flawless. That filter you thought you needed, you don't, hun.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and they're doing it to make you feel like this is what you need. And they sell your unhappiness to make you buy their products, so you think that will make you feel better about yourself, but in essence they're the problem. And social media has just taken that and driven it up, because then they can advertise through those mechanisms, right? And social media is far more accessible, so
that's true. It's
painful. But one thing I'd like to know, and it's something that's really important, is historically it's changed. As you said, those videos, it shifted. You had like 1920s flapper girl. Then you got, 1960s Marilyn Monroe, quite curvaceous.
Yeah.
For females and males, there's been different levels, like really muscular, and then sometimes like quite slim, the noughties, not noughties,
Yeah.
but the early 2000s,
Yeah.
we call it like heroin chic.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Very thin, grungy, like those are all different movements, and you find that just as one thing changes, another kind of adapts to something else.
Yeah.
And this also is culturally significant, and that's really important to know. This is a lot of Western cultures. Currently, to date, what we have now is a real divide where in Western societies, we have this notion of being tanned. Being tanned shows that you have time and money, wealth to go on holiday, sit, lounge around by the pool,
Right.
enjoy that. So people fake tan, or they do those things. They purchase products to make their skin more tanned. On the contrary, in Eastern countries and Asian countries, there's a real appearance ideal to be really fair-skinned, as pale as possible, because that signifies being in an office or quite high up employment versus labouring outdoors. So they bleach their skin. Some people bleach their skin, which is very dangerous.
Gosh.
The chemicals that are in there are very harmful. They know it. The same as tanning beds. You know, the research shows that it has a significant, there's a correlation between that and skin cancer.
Yeah.
But yet they do it.
We still do it.
We're on this planet Earth right now in 2022. I mean, whatever that means.
I know.
We won't get into that. And those are two appearance ideals that are different depending on different cultures. So to answer that, there isn't one poignant moment in time or space that had this massive effect, but there is a lot of things that have driven these appearance ideals. And companies, diet industries, they all do their bit.
Yeah.
They're doing their bit. They're putting their 2 pence in, and they're making you feel like you have to empty your bank account to pay for looking great.
Wow. It's interesting, when you actually sit down and think about it, because I was like, this is so theoretical, and how do you define it, when it's just kind of like the standard that we've all kind of accepted. But that was so, it's a business for these people. Our lives and our self-perception and our body image and our all of that appearance is a business.
It is. It's a scary business.
Dang.
Penny drop.
I know. Okay.
Yeah. Do you think? I hope I can phrase this right. I'm just thinking about how I can word this. But do you think, not that females or girls or whatever chase only guys' approval, but I know that can also be a factor in obviously how they want to represent themselves. Do you think our role as male, do you think that plays quite a significant role in that beauty standard almost? It's like rejection and acceptance of certain people who only look a certain way, or I don't know, just all these things that you're highlighting now. Do you think that can also be?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, everything helps, right?
Yeah.
Everything helps. Social media being held more accountable, but also, definitely males or those who identify as male often can have a relative position of power in society.
Yeah.
As we know, especially white, able-bodied males who are typically sometimes higher of socioeconomic status, they hold quite a significant proportion of power in our society. So I think that there is a real element where they need to be held, more accountable for being able to put these messages forward and let people know that they're kind of stand with them. The same thing with having that respect for women generally, not just about their appearance,
Right.
but also the rape culture and that element of making sure that women shouldn't need to pretend to be safe. Men need to make the space safe. That kind of side. So I think that is a really good point. So the more that men can make these spaces feel more comfortable for women to know, listen, you're great. It's not, you don't have to feel bad about the way you look. But also we know that men feel like that sometimes too. So
It's the reverse
it goes
as
both
well.
ways.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
So it's a real, it's a whole person job, right?
Yeah.
But I agree, definitely men need to be considerate of themselves, but also women, and that happens beyond appearance. But when I've worked in schools with the boys and girls in mixed education classes, and the teacher's doing a body image class, which has always been really fun, then I've asked I've interviewed girls and boys after, and I've said to the girls, what do you think about the boys being there? What do you think? They were like, no, I really liked it. I wanted to hear what they had to say. I wanted to know. And the boys would be like, I don't really care right now, but I know I might in the future, and I want to be there for the girls. And when you heard that, you're
nice.
like,
Yeah, that's nice.
I like this generation.
Yeah, honestly, that's
that.
amazing.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I say yes, it's the more that can be done, and males specifically as well, men who are in positions of power can do that to help.
It's just like similar to what Courtney was saying. It's like so many different areas of kind of effect almost, isn't it? It's being responsible for whatever role you have in that. It's so interesting.
It is.
Yeah, speaking about responsibility, this is my segue now. We here at the Anchor of the Week, we love we know that we're not victims to our circumstances, and that we can, like, you have it in you to take responsibility, to take ownership of these things that are happening around you. Obviously, there are, to a certain extent, as you said, you're driving the car, but you're not the car itself.
Exactly.
We can only take a certain amount of control, if you will, or ownership. But to the best of our abilities, like, we've heard all of this, and we've heard, like, depressing statistics, and just kind of, all right, like, this is the reality of where we're at now with social media and body image, or just body image in general. But what can we do now? Because we don't want anyone to listen to this and be like, oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, that really sucks. And then go on to their scroll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even if it's, taking responsibility for themselves, or if they know that a friend is struggling with that, like, how can, we be actually, like, looking out for one another in this space that is so chaotic and blurred,
It's such an important point, and we are definitely, like you say, in the car, but we're not in the car. But the social media is such an important part of our lives, and we cannot, as researchers, we know we can't say to people, don't use social media.
Right.
It ain't gonna happen. Right. Yeah. It's just not feasible.
But do you think that would be the solution, or
no,
it goes beyond that?
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
There are some things that, well, as researchers, we have moved towards exactly your questions. You're saying, well, okay, we know this is awful.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? And that's, we say, we can't say that we don't use social media. So there's some research that's been done, especially here at CAR, and with the likes of Amy Slater, who is the co-director here at CAR. And it's about buffering the space that we're in. So there's some research about self-compassion quotes, and if we start following different groups or pages that have self-compassion quotes, and we see them in and around the images, what can that do? And it found that it just buffers the negative effects a little bit.
Oh, really?
So it adds that cushion, so you're like, oh, it's not having as much harm as it can do. So being able to buffer your feed a little bit when you're seeing those beauty, like, images, if that's the kind of things you're following and responding to, then following certain things that maybe, like cute dogs, that's always great.
Sure.
Makes you feel
the
happy.
go-to.
That boosts your mood. Research will show you that. I will tell you that. Those things can be really helpful at, like, reducing those negative, harmful effects. And another thing is, because we know that appearance comparisons is a key element, again, like I say, the more things you have in your feed that buffer that aren't humans, like, that can add less of a appearance element to your feed.
Wow.
That can really help you. And so that's one side. Another thing is, if you find someone in particular, and I know this can be tricky because it can be family and friends sometimes, who can be quite harmful. Maybe they're posting things that are making you feel quite uncomfortable, not necessarily just to do with appearance, but generally, is to distance yourself from them. So it used to be, and the platforms change all the time, like I say, so it's like tough to keep up in person, let alone as a researcher. And so you can not necessarily unfollow, but hide people.
I just showed my sister how to mute people, like, in her stories.
Mute, that's the
Mute, that's it.
And she was like, they won't know, and I was like, no, like, this is one win from Instagram right here, is that they made a way that, like, you don't have to block them. You're still following them, you just don't see them, like.
And you've got to take those wins.
Yeah,
right?
honestly.
That is a win. Because there was this real difficulty previously where people were like, exactly what you were saying. Someone's like, I can't unfollow them. That's like, friend from school, but they're doing my head in. And I can't stand seeing them. Like, they're posting their weight loss pictures, and this is triggering me.
Yeah.
I'm triggered and I don't like it. And, like, those kind of things are so important, because we can mute them and try and detach ourselves. So if we can be aware, that's the key thing, right? Be aware. So if we're aware that this is having these effects, then what we should be doing is either buffering our feeds so that they protect us a little bit, muting people or unfollowing if you don't care, who are making us feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
And there's like also being mindful of what you're posting, because remember, we can also get in that driver's seat.
Yeah.
If we're driving this car and it's knocking down everyone left, right, and center with us, you know, we need to know that this is we're perpetuating. That's a hard word to say.
Yes.
We're just perpetuating these negative, harmful effects, and people might be muting us, you know, but that's fine. They can do that. That's boundaries. That's respect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And one kind of final thing that I have is taking a break if you need it. You know, we say you can't stop it entirely, but taking a step back if you need to, taking time, spend physical time if you can. Obviously, during the pandemic that wasn't necessarily possible, and that connectedness is really important. But try and, you know, see people in person if you can. Enjoy that sociableness with friends and family away from the screen. That's key as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can get wrapped up in this world, and it can take you down different roads.
Yeah, and then before you know it,
you're 3 hours on TikTok and you don't know where you've been or where you're going.
Well, not like a personal attack.
No, but that's okay. Just step away after.
Exactly.
These are really cool points, actually. I guess for me, I wonder if you ever thought about, because these are all like, okay, I'm comparing someone on my social media, and that's a trigger almost to the insecurity that's inside me, right? And all these different things, it sounds like they're just big trigger points, right? So when I'm face to face with someone or out in public and I'm not on social media, maybe me looking at someone, I'm gonna compare in that situation as well, right? And that will trigger something. So it feels like the issue is still within, right? And I guess, I mean, you must have thought about stuff like this. I mean, what are ways you can almost tackle, like, I mean, the issue is hugely on social media, and I appreciate it's got such a heavy effect or whatever. But there's also, it's like when you're away from all that, the issue's still there, right? So, do you think it's just a case of our influence on people and how we can, I guess, help, and it's just collectively trying to make that better? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on.
No, you're exactly right. And obviously this topic today was social media, but like I say, this could be a wealth of episodes, and there's definitely the real key element about, you know, and I hate the term, like, you know, love yourself, because we don't, and body positivity is a movement.
I was going to ask you about this. What are your thoughts on the body positivity movement? If you can add that in there.
Another real positive with social media is social activism on social media, and the body positivity, like hashtag, the movement has got real merit. And there are people who have very much fought for their right to have that body positivity movement. It's particularly people who are in more diverse bodies, people who are higher weight, people who are ethnic minority, and that is cool. I'm happy for that. But I think that it's also got a bit of a negative side, where it almost has this assumption that everyone should love themselves all the time. Now, I think, back to the point about someone being, it's really important that we not necessarily love the skin we're in, but are comfortable in the skin that we're in. And that's work. That's self-work. And it's this acceptance. I prefer the term body acceptance, where it's like, you know, when you wake up one morning and you don't feel that great, you just feel pretty rubbish. You're like, I do not want to get out of bed. I'm done. Today I'm done. And it's not even like the start.
Yes.
But the same with like our bodies and the way we think about our bodies. Sometimes we think, I don't feel that great today. You know, I feel pretty bleh. And I think sitting with that and not feeling the ultimate pressure to look a certain way, to be positive. The assumption as well as a body image researcher is that we are body positive all the time or feel we love ourselves. That's not necessarily the case. We are humans. We feel these things. But also it's taking ownership of when you do feel great and you're like, I feel alive. I feel great. I look great. I'm going to town. This is it. And those kind of things, and sitting with that is really important. And that means that in your own day-to-day space, you're having those thoughts and emotions. But another element, and just to point out the difference between social media and real life, is people put their best foot forward on social media.
Yeah.
Whereas in real life, you're interacting with people in a different way.
Very true.
You know, you just because you saw what they ate for breakfast on their Instagram post doesn't mean like they didn't, you know, do XYZ in and around those things.
Yeah.
So you get more of a real life perspective, and that's less harmful.
already.
It's
Right.
different.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you can still compare yourself to people in everyday life.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a balance between being comfortable in yourself, everyday work, knowing that you can feel different ways.
Yeah.
But in real life, interactions are more complex in terms of you have that depth, and you sit down with a friend and you have a coffee, and you're not worrying about the way that they look. You're not necessarily worrying about the way you
Yeah.
look. You're like, how's your day? How's
Yeah.
Actual
it?
connection.
Connection, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that like visual feed that you're getting, which is quite surface level. So
Right.
it's very different, but I think you're so right. Self-work, important, but don't feel pressure to feel like you love yourself.
I feel like pressure and that pressure is so key, actually.
Yeah.
Because, when you don't feel pressure, you relax so much more, don't you? Or you just don't care as much.
Yeah.
Weird how it's connected. Yeah.
And it's interesting is in like friendship groups, if you find that, you know, one could be quite appearance focused, and that can sometimes drag the group down a little
Yeah.
bit, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, I feel like this is heavy now. Whereas
Yeah.
like I've got like some friendship groups that are really light, and you just have a great time, and you forget like even take pictures, and you're like, darn it.
Yeah.
No memories
I
except
know.
for
The ones that stayed. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's really like where you come away often feeling more like yes,
Yeah.
as opposed to those heavy kind of really appearance focused ones. I think that's quite interesting. There's a lot that could be said about that, and I think we could go
Yeah.
off on a
Sure,
tangent.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to take this way too long.
Yes. And you know what, Jade, we are at the time where we have to sadly start wrapping this up.
It's so sad.
I know.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah, we could literally go forever. We were saying exactly before we started filming, everyone, we were talking about how the three of us just love to talk, and how this literally could be a 24-hour podcast should we need to, like a radio. You know what I mean? But any kind of like
Next time.
right? We'll make it a whole thing. But any kind of like last statements, anything else you want to add that we maybe didn't touch on, or even just an encouragement to the people that are listening, just kind of like a final thought, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about loads, so not to, you know, go back over any of those things, but just, the key is to just be accepting of yourself, your environment, be aware, be, you know, mindful of the spaces you put yourself in, the people that you put yourself with, the people you follow. Don't feel ultimate pressure to look a certain way despite social media and advertisers telling you and trying to sell you these dreams.
Right.
Just know that doesn't mean you have a happy ending.
Yeah.
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 You don't have this happily ever after. You are your happy ever after. You got one body, treat it well. It needs to serve you well.
Yeah.
Don't bleach it. Don't do things like those. Things are harmful. They're going to have a long-term effect. So I just think, just take care of yourself. That's what I'd say. Take care of yourself and take care of other people. Be respectful of them and
I love that.
your own
Yeah.
body.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Oh, so good.
So
honestly,
good, yeah. All right, and then Jade, where can people find you? I know on Appearance Matters. You want to plug that one more time, or anything else that you're doing that you want to plug? Yeah, go for it. This is your space.
Thank you, by the way, so
Yes.
much. This has been amazing, and you're both lovely to chat to, and I could honestly talk to you all day. I'm the co-host of Appearance Matters, the podcast, which, as I said, you can get on any podcast places you prefer to get your podcasts. And also do check out our research center, Center for Appearance Research. If you Google that, we're also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, just Center for Appearance Research, or also car_UWE, UE, car_UE, those little things we started with, just to bring it full circle.
Yes.
And that can help you to buffer your feed.
There we go. Oh, that was perfect. Amazing.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jade.
Thank you so much.
This has been awesome.
This is amazing.
And I'm excited to listen to this one again, actually. I feel like that's what we need. But amazing. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's episode of The Anchor of the Week. And we will see you soon.
Yep. See you later.
Thank you.